I would drive 100 miles and I would drive 100 more just to find a used clock spring to add steering wheel controls to my car.
Literally 100 miles later.
I'm practically carrying around a whole Harbor Freight with me. Found the fuse box covers I needed.
Oh, hey, look, brake rotor's still in the box.
That they are. In a puddle of dried up muck.
Yep. This one's probably... Yeah, it's still good.
Don't need them, but...
Cool.
Cat inside. Does that mean catalytic converter? Or does that mean feline? Because on the one I got, the one that came with my car, the wires had been cut, so I still need this piece.
Oh, okay.
I can't even use that on... which is also what leads me to believe my car doesn't have a clock spring at all.
Got
If
it.
they just cut the horn wires, why wouldn't they cut the clock spring wires?
Yeah.
This Saturn has 405,105 miles. I knew they were known for two things: burning oil and running forever as long as you keep them filled up. I have found it. The holy grail of 1994 Pontiac Firebirds. According to the picture when this thing came in, it had steering wheel controls. So let's take a look. Well, that looks like a steering column that everything's been taken off of. But I see a yellow wire down here, which means someone didn't take the clock spring, although they might have destroyed it. I found the steering wheel on the passenger seat, no radio controls, and no clock spring.
Here it is.
No, where did I put the controls? I want to film that first. I found the controls. What did I do with them?
The steering wheel? Right there in front of your face.
There's the wheel. I found the control part.
Dude, he's right in front of your face.
Oh.
God, you're dumb.
Well, there's the radio controls sitting in the center console here. And it looks like someone absolutely did cut the wiring for both the controls and the airbag. But that might mean the clock spring is around here somewhere.
A few moments later.
Here it is. It's on the ground.
Let me see it. Does it have wires?
Yeah.
No, somebody cut the wires. Aside from the fact that somebody cut the wires, it doesn't look like it's in that bad of shape physically. I wonder if there's still enough continuity to be able to use this. Since these are apparently so hard to find, I'm going to see if I might be able to salvage this. I did bring my multimeter to test it. So green to green has continuity. White to white has continuity. So the airbag side of this is good. Let's check the radio controls. Gray to... oh, I can't see in here. Gray?
Yep.
Has continuity. black to black has continuity. Yellow to yellow.
Yep.
Has continuity. And green to green.
Yay!
Has continuity.
That's all of them?
This is a good clock spring.
Yay!
It's just missing some pieces, which if I can find the other parts of it in the car, I might still be able to Frankenstein this back together and use it.
Yay!
Because they don't make new ones. Let's try to find all the pieces. Here's the airbag wiring to the car with the connector. Let's pull these out of the steering wheel. How does this one come off? Now, all we are missing. Oh, here we go. Here's the last part of the wiring. There's all the pieces. I may be able to solder them back together. So, since they left, the controls, the airbag, the wheel, and the clock spring, what did they take? Not the ignition cylinder, because that's right here, which leaves the turn signal stock and the controls, which you can buy new.
PSA, do not destroy parts you don't need if you don't have to.
Yes.
You're just gonna piss someone else off to get the next part.
Yes. So the reason for doing all that is because when I bought the car, it came with this Grant steering wheel, which I absolutely do not like. It's pretty small. The factory wheel and airbag were in the trunk, but I had a strong suspicion that the clock spring was either missing or destroyed. So with the Grant wheel removed, there's definitely no clock spring behind it. Instead of simply finding one to work with the wheel I already had, I decided to purchase this one from eBay that has radio controls on it, but I can still use my existing airbag. It's in good enough shape overall, except for a tiny flake of missing paint on one of the buttons and cracked plastic on the horn control. I already knew about that, so I went ahead and swapped it out with one I picked up from the junkyard. Stay tuned until the end of this video if you need my original wheel for your Firebird. With my new steering wheel sorted out, it was time to put Humpty Dumpty the clock spring back together again. Now, I'm no expert in soldering wires, and I struggled through the first few with this little iron that took forever to get things hot enough.
One eternity later.
I finally got things soldered and heat shrinked, but I wasn't looking forward to doing this 11 more times. I struggled through a few more connections with my crappy little iron, before remembering I bought this thing at Harbor Freight a few years ago and never even took it out of the box. I'm sure I used that completely the wrong way, but it did make a connection in far less time than what I was doing before. The other side of the clock spring gave me longer wires to work with, which made repairing it far easier, and just as I was starting to get the hang of things, I was done and all the wires were back together. You'd never know that wasn't factory. I guess I did something right, since I had continuity across every wire from both cables. And to center this particular clock spring, you release the locking tab and rotate it as far as you can in one direction. Before making 2.5 turns the opposite way. If you don't do this, you'll break it the first time you turn the wheel all the way to one side. Before I commit to installing it, let's go ahead and test it in the car. This kick panel is held in by 2 Phillips and 2 7mm screws. And then you kind of just wiggle it loose. Let's not leave that hanging by the trunk release. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this alarm thingamajigger and at least get the subwoofer control out of the way for now. There's what's left of the factory clock spring. And this yellow connector here is where my airbag plugs in. With the clock spring and airbag connected, I'll go ahead and start the engine and still getting an airbag light. If things were working properly, it's supposed to blink several times and then turn off. At this point, I decided to get out my scan tool and see what the computer thinks the problem is. It is capable of reading codes from the airbag module, but when I tried it, it failed to communicate. This should have been a sign of what was wrong, but I took it as my scanner being finicky and went on to check the resistance of the airbag itself instead, since that's what the computer's looking for. It wants to see a reading between 1.3 and 4.8 ohms, and mine came in around 3, so that's not the problem. I finally decided to check the fuse box, and sure enough, the one for the airbag had been removed. I didn't have any spare fuses of the correct size, so instead of taking a trip to the parts store, I jumped it with a piece of wire. Don't worry, this is just for testing purposes. You'll notice the light is blinking now instead of being on solid, and it does go out after a while, as it should. Confident that things were actually going to work now, I used a special tool to depress the lock plate to remove the spacer and retaining clip holding it in. The plate then comes out, along with the turn signal cam behind it, which the horn wires clip into and which is also broken. Under the dash, I undid this wiring connector to give myself enough room to pull out this plastic shield, or I'm never getting anything through the column. The last thing that needs to come out is the turn signal assembly. I won't be removing it, but I do need to get it out of the way. The hazard switch is still preventing it from moving, so let's get that out of the way. And now I have a lot more room to run wires down the column, so I'll go ahead and pull in the airbag wire. Let's go ahead and get the control wire run through as well. And reattach the turn signal switch. I may as well re-grease this piece before putting it back into place and making sure it catches on the lever. It's kind of difficult to show on camera, but you'll know you did it right if the turn signals still work. My existing turn signal cam is broken where the horn button locks in, but luckily replacements are readily available since GM has been using this same part on a bunch of different vehicles back to the 60s or 70s. I did end up having to cut off some of my tape wrapping in order for the lock plate to reinstall. Since it rotates with the column, the position doesn't matter as long as the horn connection goes through the properly shaped hole. And it still doesn't fit, so let's try no tape at all. There we go. I had to take this clip off the airbag connector to get it through the column, so let's put it back on. May as well reinstall this while I'm thinking about it. And definitely don't forget to reconnect this plug, or your turn signals, wipers, and cruise control all won't work. And no, don't ask me how I know that. Just above this hole, where the underdash shield mounts, all Firebirds, and I believe 2000 and up Camaros, are pre-wired with a connector for steering wheel controls, even if they didn't come with them from the factory. Mine was even taped nicely out of the way since it wasn't being used. The clock spring is held in place by a snap ring that fits into this groove here, which of course I don't have, but can still be ordered from GM for entirely too much money. While I wait for it to get here, I can go ahead and connect the airbag. Definitely not forget to install a fuse. And check one more time to make sure there's no warning light. And since I already had the steering wheel off, now is the perfect time to fix the burned out bulb in my gauge cluster. That's going to leave some residue. And this trim piece is just held in with clips that pull out. After spending literally at least 10 minutes trying to get it out of there, I used a piece of paper to prevent the clips from scratching the cluster, and twisted and pried on it until it finally came out. Remember how in episode 1 I said, "To be honest, I'm amazed I didn't break the plastic." Well, I don't, and I have no idea why that crack is there. Replacements for this piece simply don't exist, so I may as well undo the fog light switch and fix it the best I can. I'm just going to mix up some JB Weld to fill the crack. I'm not going to apply pressure or try to clamp it back together since it doesn't show anyways, and that'll just create more stress. While that sets up, I'll go ahead and remove the 4 screws holding in the gauge cluster, which just slides out of the connector in the dash. There's a total of 9 bulbs, each in their own little holders, for the backlights, turn signals, and high beam indicator. After twisting out the sockets, it's just like replacing any other bulb. I'm using warm white 194 LEDs to mimic the factory incandescent lights. Moving on through the rest of the process at warp speed until I get to the very last one, and that is definitely burned out. Since all LEDs are polarity sensitive, after getting all of them swapped out, it's important to plug the cluster back in and test it. And flip around any bulbs that don't light up the first time. That's better. Just don't forget to check the high beam indicator and turn signals, since those bulbs do get replaced as part of this process. That does it for the gauge cluster, but for the sake of completeness, the headlight switch has a tiny bulb that's replaceable as well. It's a T3 Neo wedge, which is difficult to find, but I was able to get one from superbrightleds.com. Since the reflector design in the switch depends on the factory incandescent bulb emitting light in all directions, while the LED has a single directional chip, I made a diffuser of sorts to help with that. Of course I put it in backwards, but after flipping it around, it worked and my homemade diffuser spread the light evenly. Before reinstalling the trim, I had to fix a couple of broken clips, which I did by screwing them back into the holes from the tabs that broke off, and gluing them back together since I had to force them open for the screwdriver to fit. After letting that dry overnight, I can finally start putting things back together. By now, my snap ring has arrived, so let's go ahead and get that locked in. Because of the flat section here, the steering wheel only goes on one way, so it's impossible to get it wrong. These 2 markings also line up with each other, just to make alignment even easier. The horn connector twists into the turn signal cam I replaced earlier. The spring pressure keeps it tight against the contact ring inside as you turn the wheel. The steering wheel controls clip in behind where the airbag will be. But let's test the horn before it goes in. That side works, but this side took a couple tries before it made noise, and I did notice a bit of corrosion, so let's go ahead and clean it up with a wire wheel. Maybe I should have disconnected the battery first? Oh well, it's fixed. Now I just need to install my existing airbag, which attaches from the back with a couple of Torx screws. Turn the wheel all the way from side to side just to make sure the clock spring is installed correctly and doesn't break. And make sure the steering wheel lights up when I turn on the headlights. That confirms at least 3 of the wires, power, ground, and illumination, are working properly, but I can't test the 4th, which provides the actual signal, without a new radio, which is coming in a future video. That's it for the main things I wanted to accomplish this episode, but I did have a couple of other issues come up that I wanted to go ahead and address. As I started to actually drive the car, the security light would occasionally stay on after it started. This indicates a problem with the VATS system, most likely with the sensor that reads the resistance of the key, but instead of replacing the lock cylinder, I'm just going to bypass the entire system for a permanent fix. You can do that by cobbling together resistors, but they also sell a kit that's a much more refined solution. Since the kit mimics the resistance of your actual key, the first step is to figure out what that is by measuring across both sides of the chip. Once the reading stops jumping around, we get a consistent 2.36 kiloohms, which matches up pretty well with number 8 on the included chart. Then it's as simple as flipping switch number 8 on the bypass module, undoing this connection under the dash with the orange wire, and plugging in the bypass module. Success! The engine starts, and the security light goes off as it should. Alright everyone, welcome back. It's now a few days later, and as you saw in the last clip, everything was working when I put things back together and went inside. It's now a couple days later. I went out to try and move the car to get some work done, and this happened. So I pulled out the bypass module, and as I was trying to test the resistance, this happened. Yeah, that's not going to work. Well, I was trying to remove the pins from this so I could solder and strengthen the connections, but I didn't really have anything small enough to get inside of here and release the clips, so instead I just ended up completely destroying it. Let's try Plan B. Plan B, of course, involves using spade terminals to make my own connector and extending the wiring under the dash to match. You don't need to watch me start the car again, but since then I've had no further problems. I also noticed my turn signal switch, especially the cruise control part, was looking a bit worn after 27 years, but a shiny new one is only about $20, so let's go ahead and get that swapped out. There's a convenient plastic cover behind the stock that exposes the wiring, which I'll go ahead and disconnect, and the stock literally just pulls out. The new one installs the same way. You just sort of rotate it around until it decides it wants to go in all the way. Let's go ahead and get the wiring fished through and plugged in. And before I put the cover back on, there's one more thing I wanted to take care of. My steering wheel has done this ever since I bought the car, which is due to worn out tilt pins in the column. Unbalanced Engineering sells oversized replacements which take up the slack, and the one on the driver's side is right behind this cover. That's nasty, and looks like someone lost part of a granola bar in there who knows how long ago. With that out of the way, they make a special tool that screws into the center of the pin, link in the description, and allows it to be pulled out by tightening the nut. I've got the new pin greased up, and I'll use the same tool to install it. It's definitely a tighter fit than the last one, so I'll use a 3/8 inch socket and a wobble extension and whack it with a hammer until it goes in. That looks flush, so I'll go ahead and remove the tool, which looks to have gotten bent slightly in the process. No worries, it's fixed. As a visual aid, the two plastic pieces fit together like this, but this piece has to go over the high beam rod first, before this one, now with more grease and less food. With only the driver's side pin replaced, that's a huge improvement. I did buy a second pin for the passenger side, but doing that one requires taking apart the whole column, which I don't feel like doing right now given how much improvement just the one made. If I do, I'll be sure to film it when it happens. After putting things together, though, I did notice my high beam switch magically started working, which it hadn't done since I bought the car. Thanks for watching! If you've made it this far, first of all, thank you, it helps my retention, but you're probably looking for a steering wheel and I happen to have one that I'm not using. It's definitely not a show quality wheel. There's no airbag because I'm using it. It's got some wear up here and the horn wires have been patched back together, but for the low cost of free, it can be yours. Just send me a DM with your address and the first person to do that gets it. I will update the description once it's gone.